For 3 days, the town sewer the farmer was imagining things, because November lived him when he set a strange, limping creature was stalking his fields. But when a wildlife vet followed him into the barn, and her flashlight hit the corner, she froze. The monster everyone mocked him for wasn't a threat at all. He was a pregnant, dying bobcat, trying to survive long enough to save her unborn babies. What happened next, no one in the town will ever forget. The nights round Miller's Creek had always been quiet, too quiet for a man like Biz Miller, who had spent most of his life waking up to the sounds of cattle, tractors, and his wife humming in the kitchen. But tonight, as he sat alone on his creaking porch, coffee turning cold in his hands, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A presence. It started with the sound of leaves dragging across the ground, uneven, almost as if something was limping. Biz squinted toward the tree line. I see it wasn't what I said to be, but even in the fading twilight he could tell this wasn't a It was too low, too heavy, too broken. A large shadow lingered at the edge of his yard, breathing hard, like every in Holocaust a battle. Biz leaned forward, heart thudding painfully in his chest. The creature didn't run. It didn't even flinch. It just stared back, unblinking. For a moment, the two locked eyes, one old man and one unknown, suffering thing, both holding their breath for reasons neither fully understood. Then the creature vanished into the darkness. Biz said frozen. Something was wrong. Horribly wrong. The next morning, he went straight to Candy's corner store. But when he told Tara what he'd seen, the massive shoulder hump, the bare patches of skin, the dragging leg, the entire room fell silent. Then came the worst part. They left. MRS Gibro sneaked behind her magazine. One of the local boys muttered, "Old man seeing ghosts again." Even Candy, who knew Biz better than most, gave him the kind of look you give someone who's lost too much in life. Biz, maybe it was a stray dog. It wasn't no dog, Biz snapped, anger flushing hot in his chest. She looked at me. Right at me. And she was hurting. But no matter how hard he tried to explain the fear in those eyes, the pain in the way she moved, the town had already made up its mind. Biz was imagining things again. That afternoon, rumors spread like fire. Seeing mountain lions. He said it was bald, must be a diseased wolf. Could be rabies, keep you a kids in Termara. Within hours, Penny had twisted his story into something monstrous. And Biz, exhausted and frustrated, walked home with a heaviness in his chest he hadn't felt since his wife Martha passed away. He didn't want attention. He didn't want drama. He just wanted someone, anyone, to believe him. By nightfall, the creature returned. This time closer. This time desperately. Biz stood at his window, watching her stumble across the earth and collapse against the old oak stump. A shiver ran through him as he realized something he hadn't before. She wasn't stalking. She wasn't hunting. She wasn't even trying to hide. She was breaking. And suddenly, the fear of the unknown melted into a different kind of fear. The fear of watching something suffer and not being able to help. Biz grabbed his old landline phone with trembling hands. If the tower wouldn't believe him, if no one trusted his eyes, then he needed someone who would trust the facts. A wildlife specialist. A real expert. And when Dr. Lena Harris arrived the next day and stepped inside Biz's barn for the first time, nothing, not her years of field work, not her training, not even her steely compass, prepared her for what her flashlight revealed. The storm arrived before Dr. Lena Harris did. Dark clouds crawled over the mountains, the kind that made the world feel smaller, quieter, more dangerous. Biz waited on his porch, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, feeling the cold settle into his bones. Every minute felt like an hour. Every ghost of wind reminded him of the creature's rigid breathing the night before. When the green statue SUV finally crunched up his gravel driveway, Biz felt a strong mix of relief and dread. This was it. Either he would finally be believed, or it proved the entire town right. A tall woman stepped out, latertis, sharped and carrying the posture of someone who lived her life expecting emergencies. Sor Street, wildlife rehabilitationным persantrescu specialist. Amer Miller, gekoeld, striding forward. MGR Lena Harris. You reported an injured cougar. Bis shukuches hit. I said it looked like a cougar. But I don't know what it is. I just know she's in trouble. Lena studied him for a moment, not dismissing, not judging, just measuring oiche's sincerity. Tension adit owns, decisive. Show me everything. They walked toward the barn. They went hurriedly through the empty fields, rattling the tin roof like bones shaking in a box. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the fading smell of old hay. Bis flicked on a light bulb. It blinked, flickered, then beat the barn in a weak yellow glow. Lena raised her flashlight anyway. What direction did you last see her go? She asked. Buck stowel. Far left toik. Lena led the way, steps steady, shoulders tight. Bis followed close behind, gripping a worn walking stick more for carrots than balance. The closer they got, the colder the air felt, not from temperature, but from something heavier. Fear, maybe. Or anticipation. Then, a sound. La. Rauw. A troity growl that vibrated through the wooden walls. Lena instantly lifted her tranquilizer rifle, posture snapping into focus. Stay behind me. The beam of her flashlight swept across the flower bowers, stirring dust into golden swirls. It slid over empty stalls, old feed buckets, bales of forgotten hay. Then it reached the final stall. And stopped. At first, all Bis saw was a pile of burlap sacks. But then the sacks moved. A hunched shape caroled in the corner, ribs rising and falling in frantic, shallow breaths. Patches of raw, pink skin glistened where fair should have been. One leg dragged noiselessly beneath her body. A soft hisser escaped her, not aggression, but terror. Bis felt which yes breath catch. The creature was big, yes, but not with strength. She was swollen. Distorted. Starving. Lena inched forward, as narrowed with professional focus. She didn't fire. She didn't speak. She simply watched. Then her flashlight beam fell across the creature's belly. And she froze. The color drained from her face so fast Bis saw it happen in real time. What is it? Bis whispered. Rabies. Some kind of infestation. Lena slowly lowered her rifle, carefully, gently, until it touched the ground. She murmured. It's not a mountain lion, a mere Miller. She swallowed. Hard. It's a bobcat. A family. Her voice dropped, barely a breath. And she's pregnant. Bis blinked. Pregnant. But she's sick, Lena finished quietly. Very sick. That's why she looks so strong. Severe means congenital limb deformity, starvation. She crouched down, her voice trembling now with something Bis hadn't seen in her yet, emotion. She's not lurking. She's not hunting. Lena looked up at him, eyes shining with disbelief and heartbreak. She came here because she's dying, and she's trying to find a safe place to deliver her kittens. Bis felt the word tilt. Everything the tower had whispered, the fear, the panic, the remorse, shattered like glass at witch's feet. There was no monster, no predator, just a desperate mother hanging on by a thread. For the first time, witch's voice cricket. Can we help her? Lena hesitated. In her condition. She looked back at the trembling creature. The standard protocol is euthanasia. It's considered the humane option. The barn fell silent. Only the storm outside dared to make noise. Bis stared at the bobcat, terrified, exhausted, clinging to the last scraps of life, and something old and long buried inside him stirred. Compassion. Grief. Promise. He said which I asked Jayu. No touch. Lena looked up sharply. Amer Miller. He repeated, stronger this time. She came to MOI barn. And I'm not letting her die here. The weight held which I asked Gazi for a long, heavy moment. Then exhaled. All right, she whispered. Ten year going to fight for Hjortotsk. And outside, lightning split the sky, as if the world itself hit each other on sides. The storm outside had grown vicious, slamming rain against the old barn roof like fists demanding to be let in. But inside, under the wee glow of hanging bulbs and the sharper beam of Lena's flashlight, a very different storm began to unfold. Lena dropped her backpack to the ground and unzipped ITV's quick, efficient movements. Bis had never seen someone move so fast and still look so controlled. Her hands were steady, but her eyes told her another story: fear and urgency. Amer Miller, she said, if you're doing this, we need to move now, Tochk. Tell me what you need, без реплиду without hesitating. Blankets, towels, anything warm. And bring every kind of wet cat food you have, doesn't matter the brand, toch. Bis Nadita and Harry toward the house, VHS boots splashing through puddles forming across the barn floor. VHS agi didn't slag him. Adrenaline turned him into the man he was decades ago when he could lift a hibalevis van arm and fix a broken fence in 90-degree heat. Inside the barn, Lena approached the trembling bobcat slowly, letting herself to one knee just outside the stall. The creature was pointing hard, sides contracting with painful effort. Sore skin was crooked and raw. The minch had stripped her fur down to patches that barely clung to her bones. Easy, girl, Lena whispered. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you here, Tochk. The bobcat didn't hiss this time. Didn't growl. She only watched the vet through awfully dead eyes, exhausted, defeated, but trusting just enough to stay still. Lena drew a mild sedative dart from her kit. The sun put you under, she murmured. Just come you. Your babies need your wake, Tochk. The dart entered the bobcat's haunch with a soft thump. The creature flinched but didn't fight. Within moments, her breathing slowed from frantic to shaky. Biz rushed back in, arms full of towels and blankets. Later I'm here, Lena directed. And light the wood stuff in that room, the temperature needs to rise faster. Biz stumbled into the tech room, struggling with matches, frustrated by his shaking fingers. But he forced himself to steady. Marta always leads the stuff for three kittens, she said to rescue. She could almost hear her saying, be gentle, Biz. Warm first. Always warm, Tochk. The fire crackled to life. When he returned, Lena was using a dapper device, pressing it gently to the bobcat's swollen stomach. A faint rhythmic hosh filled the barn, tiny hearts fighting for life. Bez breath out. Her life. Strong, Lena said swiftly. But she doesn't have long. Her body is shutting down, Tochk. Biz filled his chest tighter. 10 WHY did come here? WHYMY barn. Lena looked at him. Because she knew she told make a tear long, Tochk. The words hit him harder than the storm ever could. The contractions began minutes later. The bobcat shifted, whining swiftly, a broken, painful sound that stabbed deep into Bia's heart. He gripped the top rail of the stall and whispered, come on, girl, hold on. Just a little longer, Tochk. Lena knelt beside the creature, her sleeves sucked in antiseptic and ran out. She worked with fierce concentration, monitoring every shiver, every breath. She might not survive the birth, Lena said quietly. But the kittens can. We just have to get them out safely, Tochk. Lightning cricket, shaking the barn. Bees didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. The first kitten emerged at 12:31 ночи. Small. Fragile. Covered in spots and wet fur. Lena cleaned its nose, checked its breathing, then smiled. Is alive, Tochk. Bees wiped tears from his eyes, pretending they were from the storm. Another contraction. Another CRY from the mother. Come on, Hob. Bees whispered the name he hadn't meant to say out loud. Lena glanced up. Hob. She nodded. She came here because she hoped somebody would help her, Tochk. It hasn't she individually agreed, but Lena didn't correct him. Because in that moment, it fell through. 2 more kittens came. Then the final one. 4 tiny leaves blinking into the world as the storm raged against the walls. But the mother, she wasn't moving much anymore. Sor britting was shella. Hor eis hif clost. Hor stringt leaking ruifister ten lena kut supert hor. Dan you quid now, bisu ispert, voice breaking. You fought too hard to get here. Dan lift ARM tochk. Lena injected glucose, fluids, anything to keep them at her's body from giving out. Hold this flashlight steady, she said. Bis leaned it over the stall, hints trembling but determined. She focused the beam on the bobcat's face, gaunt, scared, exhausted, and still trying. Minutes stretched like hours. Lightning flashed again. 10, finally. The matter lifted her head. Weakly. Slowly. But enough to pull one tiny kitten closer to her. Lena let out a shaking breath. She stabilizing touch. Bis pressed a hint to each more tears rolled freely now. Outside, the storm finally began to fade, but inside the barn, something far more powerful had been born. Hope. Real hope. Morning broke slowly over Miller's Creek, creeping in through a cracks in the barn walls as faint gold lines. The storm had washed the word clean, but inside B's barn, there was still heavy with exhaustion, antiseptic, and the quiet breaths of new life. Hope lay Gerald round her four newborn kittens, her body aufgeweret in the orals bis had rushed from the house. Sore breathing was shallow, but steady, more stable than the hours before. Lena sat against a post, legs stretched out, shoulders slumped, her face lined with fatigue and relief. Bis stood at the stall door, not daring to look away. She hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. But for the first time in years, he felt alive, as if saving hope had somehow kept him alive too. Lena rubbed her eyes. We need to move her today. Once the sun warms the air a little, I call for transportive. Bis nadit. I come with you, Tochk. Lena smiled softly. I had a feeling you would, Tochk. Before Bis could answer, the sound of gravel crunching under tires cut through the quiet. Bis stiffened. Lena turned toward the barn doors, expecting anyone. Bis shook which his head, not unless the tower decided to. The crunching multiplied, one car, then two, then several. Door slammed. Voices rosy. Bias stomach dropped. She knew that sound. The tower had come. Bis heard it outside, Lena right behind him. A line of vehicles stretched down each's driveway, trucks, SUVs, even the sheriff's cruiser. Candy stood near the gate, ringing each's hints. MRS Gabriel clutched her purse like it was a shot. The sheriff rested a hand near each's holster, scanning the property with suspicion. Morning, Bis, Sheriff Collins called. We didn't hear back from you yesterday. Folks were getting nervous, Tochk. Nervous. Bis echoed, trying to keep calm. Candy stepped forward. Bis, we need to know, is the lion still out here? Because people are scared. Kids are trick-or-treating tonight, Tochk. There is no lion, Bis said firmly. The group murmured in confusion. MRS Gabriel took a step back. Then what was it? People said you saw something bigger than a wolf. I said I saw a creature, Bis corrected, voice steady. And I wasn't wrong, Tochk. A tense silence rolled through the crowd. The sheriff narrowed which says. So what exactly is in your barn, Bis? Bis hesitated, then glanced at Lena. She gave him a small nod, tell Teram. It's a bobcat, Bis said finally. A pregnant one. Sick. Starving. Near the when she came here, Tochk. The reaction was immediate. A bobcat. You're joking. Hatsut hit the tower and roofed. Pregnant. Minch. Is it contagious? The panic turned into confusion, then into disbelief. The sheriff lifted a brow. You're telling us the monster everyone's been talking about is just a bobcat with health problems. Bis squared which his shoulders. A matter bobcat. And she almost died last night giving birth, Tochk. Another wave of murmurs. Lena stepped forward, voice clear and authoritative. Everything is saying is true. She's severely sick, deformed, and came here because she had nowhere else safe to go. If Emmer Miller hadn't acted, she and her kittens would be dead too. MRS Gabriel gasped. Kittens. Lena nodded. Four of the Aram. And here her life because of him too. Ace widened. Ze ting se on saftinet. Samonu ispert, poor ting. Ze sheriff removede is het and sight. Well, ibdm. Bis gisher taurt the barn. If you want to see TRM, come quiet. No southern movements. The group followed slowly, hesitantly, as our approaching a secret place. The barn, once a hollow space filled with memories of past life, now felt warm, life, important. Van by one, the townsfolk peered over the stile gate. Hop lay asleep on the fresh hay, 4 tiny kittens nestled into her belly, their spotted coats rising and fouling visage bread. Not a monster. Not a threat. Just a matter, scared by the word, finally safe enough to rest. Candy whispered, bis, she doesn't look scary at all. MRS Gibru covered her mouth. She looks tired. She looks alive, bis said so swiftly. A gentle quiet settled over the group, the kind of silence that comes when fear is replaced with understanding. The sheriff exhaled. All right, folks. Show's over. Spread the word, monster, no danger. Just a rescue. People nodded, some still staring at the kittens before turning to leave. Others offered bis soft smiles or respectful nods. But one little girl, the sheriff's daughter, took get on Bia's sleeve. Amer bis. Is she gonna be okay? Bis knelt beside her, looking at the fragile family inside the stall. I hope so, sweetheart, he said. She fought harder than most grown-ups ever do. The girl smiled, satisfied with the answer, and skipped off. As the last car rolled away, the farm returned to its quiet calm. Just Bis. Just Lena. Just Hope and her babies. For the first time since Marta died, Bis didn't feel alone. And he wasn't afraid of the call to intercoming. Not anymore. By late afternoon, the sky over Miller's Creek had returned to its usual soft blue, the storm washed through as if it had never existed. But inside the barn, the warmth still lingered, not just from the stove, but from something else entirely. Hope slept with her kittens tucked close, their tiny bodies rising and falling in perfect RHYTHM. Every time one of the arms squeaked or squirmed, Bis felt something inside him melt, something he thought he did with Marta. Lena knelt beside the stall, preparing her transport equipment. She checked Happy's vitals again, recorded the kitten's weights, and made notice with the precision of someone who refused to let nature take a life without a fight. Bis watched her work. You're good at this, he said quietly. Lena gave a tired smile. He delivered faxes in Snastaurum ze, others in the middle of the night, and once a raccoon on the front seat of a MOI car. But this, she looked at Hope, admiration softening her voice. This one feels different. Bis understood. There was a kind of miracle in seeing something so broken survive the night. What happens when you take the RM? He asked. Lena stood, brushing straw and dust from her knees. You bring her to our sanctuary facility. She got antibiotics, means treatment, pain control, everything she needs. She paused. Her legs will never heal fully. She never go back to the wild. Good, Bis said quickly. She deserves better than the wild. Lena looked at him. You've grown attached. Bis flushed slightly. She came to MOI barn. That means something. Lena didn't argue. A few hours later, Lena's transport van pulled into the driveway. She opened the back doors, revealing a warm petite enclosure lined with blankets, heating pads, and small incubators for the kittens. Bis stared at it. Looks like a little hospital. That's exactly what it is, Lena said. And it's where she belongs now. Together, they prepared Hope for the trip. The bobcat stared weakly as Lena slid a soft sling beneath her body. Her eyes fluttered open, cloudy with exhaustion. Bis leaned close. Easy now, girl. You're going someplace safe. And something happened, subtle, quiet, but unmistakable. Hope recognized Vichaya's voice. Sawyers twitched. Her breathing calmed. And for just a moment, she pressed her nose against Bia's hand. Lena noticed. She pretended not to. Moving her took time, patience, and incredible gentleness. They lifted her into the petite crate, keeping her stable and warm. Tien Lena gently transferret ich kitren inta a small partablein kirbeter, vaur tiny ouriers huchit auridi survive dem or ten most animals evroot. When the last kitren was sigurt, Lena closed the in kirbeter lied. Tje biake. I promise itochk. Bia strot taitant. I trust yutochk. She locked the transport van, Tien turned to him with a clipboard. If you want updates, sign here. And if you want to visit for. Bis, you will always be welcome at the sanctuary. People like you don't come round offeren touch. People like me, he quote. The kind who still believe in saving something everyone else give up on touch. Bis blinked hard, overcome. As they prepared to leave, a small convoy of neighbors slaughtered along the road, watching. But this time, there was no fear in their race. No suspicion. Only quiet respect. News had already spread. Bis Miller saved a life today, 5 leaves. As Lena climbed into the driver's seat, she leaned out the window. She survived because of you. Remember her that touch. Bis nodded. You take good care of her touch. I will touch. She hesitated. And bis, you take care of yourself, to touch. The engine who met to life. They were turned down the road. Bis watched until the last glimpse of white and blue disappeared behind the garth. Gone. But not lost. He walked slowly back to the barn, now quiet, empty, but glowing Gerhala. The straw where Hope had rested still held her scent, her warmth. The towel still lay in a circle where she had fought to give life. Bis stood there, hand on the stone ledge, breathing in the memory. For the first time since Martha's last day, the silence didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a beginning. Because Hope hadn't just survived it. She had given him something too. A reason to keep the lights on. Winter arrived early that year. Frost clung to the edges of Miller's Creek like silver lace, and the quiet rods shimmered under the pale sun. But for once, the cold didn't feel so heavy, not for Bis Miller. Every morning, he woke before dawn, brewed his coffee, and sat on his porch waiting for a moment he never thought he'd look forward to. The drive to the wildlife sanctuary. At first, he went once a week. 10 twice. 10, the Steve just started greeting him with. Morning, Bis, she seen the back touch. Each visit began the same way. It stepped into the warm enclosure where Hope now lived, held patches of fair glowing golden under the heat lamps. Her legs were still crooked, her gait uneven, but her eyes, tossed tired, frightened as he first saw in his barn, now carried something new. Peace. And the kittens, nearly 3 months old, were wild little sparks of life tumbling over each other, play fighting, climbing on the logs, and pouring sinking leaves blown in by the wind. They were strong, fearless. Everything their mother could never be. Lena would meet him at the door, tablet in hand, giving updates. This one is ready for soft release, touch. That one needs a little more hunting training, touch. And every time, Bis would kneel beside Hope and scratch the air near her ear, close enough for her to smell him, but respectful enough to never cross the boundary she still kept as a wild creature. Yet she knew him. Every single time. She would lift her head, breathing his scent, and rest again. That alone made every mile worth it. On the day the kittens were to be released, the sanctuary team gathered at the forest edge. Lena approached Bis with a small smile. You ready? Bis swallowed. As he ever be touched. The carriers were set down gently. One by one, the young bobcats stepped out, hesitant at first, then bold, then finally breaking into the rush of the underbrush, spots flashing between trees like disappearing stars. Bis watched them go until they vanished completely into the wild. He didn't see ROI. Not because he wasn't emotional, but because it felt right. Nature had taken them back. They were home. Hope didn't watch the release. She told her legs, her injuries, her years of suffering, the wild had taken too much from her. She would live out her life in safety, cared for, protected. But she wasn't alone. After the release, Bis returned to her enclosure. Hope lifted her head immediately. The same way she hid in his barn the night she almost died. Bis leaned close to the fence. Here free, girl. You did it, touch. Hope blinked slowly, breathing soft and steady. She didn't need to see the forest. She didn't need to stand on 4 perfect legs. She had only 4 job. And she had on. Lena stepped beside Bis. You know, she wouldn't have survived one more night out there. I know, Bis whispered. You saved her life, she did. Bis shook his head. She saved mine, tutochk. Lena smiled, a real, warm smile, because she understood more than he had ever said or would. That evening, when Bis drove home along the quiet winding road, the sky blazed orange and pink. He stopped at the edge of his property and looked at the barn, the old, creaking building where the fair ended, and the miracle began. For the first time in years, he opened the door to his house, and it didn't feel empty. He placed a picture of Marta on the mantel and whispered, "We saved her, sweetheart. You'd be proud, Tochk." A soft breeze slipped through the cricket window, gentle, warm, almost like an answer. Bis sat in his rocking chair, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunset behind the mountains. And he understood something he hadn't realized before. It spent 3 years grieving the end of a life. But hope had taught him something far more powerful. Every ending carries a beginning inside it. If you were brave enough to open the door. And so, the legend of Miller's Creek isn't about a monster. It was the story of an old man, a broken mother bobcat, and the night they saved each other. The tower would tell the tale for years. But only Bis knew the truth in his heart. Hope didn't just arrive in his barn that night. Hope arrived in him.